to Fine Art for All. My name is Barbara Mendes and I'm an artist in Los Angeles. And tonight's show is going to very much evolve around me, who I am, and my stories and my paintings because they all weave together. Everything in art, it comes from life. And you've probably seen sometimes my stories and my paintings come from the Bible and other sources. But tonight's program will focus on life, and I hope my stories will weave in and out. So we'll be looking at paintings in the studio, and then we will see a roll-in, which will continue the theme of life and art. And then back in the studio, we're going to do Now We Paint, where I paint on the camera for you to watch. So I'm going to begin by looking at paintings in the studio. The first painting that I'm going to talk about will be one that I did last time on Now We Paint. It's called the Shabbat Queen. And if you recall, it was pretty much black and white. There were no colors, and I talked a lot about the angels, and I talked about the state of Israel, and I talked about the inspiration for the piece, which began with a smaller piece, which is also, the Shabbat Queen. Now, I decided I really liked this little Shabbat Queen, so I wanted to make a big one. So I did the drawing and I began it, and last time I taped the television show on TV, I painted these angels. And at home, I have to tell you, it took a good 6 weeks to finish this. I worked very hard and long hours, and it's one of these very intricate pictures. Now, I'd like to see a little close-up, if I can, of this little lady group here, which is down in a farm. So I've really gone into the landscape of the land of Israel in this. And what we see is the Shabbat Queen. And on Friday night, the rabbis are on the hill greeting the Shabbat Queen. So since I really talked a lot about it last time, I'm going to move on to some other paintings and stories. Now, this painting over here, which is called I Saved You, is pretty much the subject of tonight's TV show. We're going to see a whole roll-in about it. And then I'm going to paint more on it on the Now We Paint segment. You can see this is the drawing that you'll see also in the roll-in. And for now, I'm going to put it aside so we can talk about the frisky horses that are behind me. And we're going to move the Shabbat Queen out of the way also. I told Mark, our director, we're going to pretend you're with Barbara. It's like you're visiting my studio, and I'm just going to be me tonight. So we'll move this off. And now we'll talk about the frisky horses behind me. Now, why did I make frisky horses? Because I had made them before. I used to have my artwork in a restaurant called Cha 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 in the Valley, and it was there 15 years. It was all my paintings. And at that time, there were frisky horses there. So I know a woman named Chris. And Chris fell in love with the frisky horses. Why? Because she's a horse lady. She has horses. How do I know Chris? From my Aunt Julia. And I decided to include Aunt Julia in tonight's show because she's the reason, in the end, that I made these new frisky horses. So this is my Aunt Julia, and I'm going to share a portrait of her that I made. Now, I made this portrait in 1973. It's dated, and it's called My Aunt Julia. Now, my beloved Aunt Julia was born in 1913. So that means when I painted this portrait from life, Julia was 60 years old at the time. She died in 2000. And now I want to show you something very funny. Notice what she's wearing in this, a colorful caftan. And who else but on Fine Art for All would you see that from 1973 I have the caftan that's in the painting. And I'm going to be 60. On January 30th, 2008, I will be 60. So here's Julia at 60, and as they called me, Bobby at 60. Okay, so that's how I know Chris, who is a younger person than Aunt Julia, family friend. She wanted those frisky horses, and she came to my studio to buy a picture, and I looked over, where are they? I couldn't find them, I couldn't remember. I figured when they closed that restaurant last year, maybe I forgot them. They were in the hallway by the restroom, who knew? So I said, you know what, Chris, because you love them and I love you, I'm gonna make you new frisky horses. So it took a little while. Why? Because I had to finish that Shabbat Queen, and I was all that sky and these tiny little details. As soon as I finished the Shabbat Queen with some personal things in between, which you're going to all see about, so then I jumped into the frisky horses. And you're going to see here later about the first one, that story. All these stories I hope will go round and round. So here you can see the frisky horses. So they're brand new. I made them for Chris. and she's coming to get them tomorrow to my studio. And I really had fun with these. I used glitter. I made a movie myself at home of the creation of these, but since I don't know how to edit yet, we couldn't see that one. But what I did was I dripped color in these. Let's see. Anyway, I poured the color on there and I let it do all kinds of swirls, which the camera really captured beautifully because it's never quite the same when it dries. But I kept doing it till I liked it, and I added a lot of glitter onto it. Now, I also brought to show, although there's no one here for close-ups, so at some point I'll show you my little dollies. So I'm going to start talking about the roll-in that's going to come next, because it kind of follows my life along, and I want you to know that an artist does different things, like has a life. As for me, I write poems, I make drawings, I make a painting, and also that a painting doesn't just burst out. A painting is sometimes born. It's born from life, it's born from drawings, and in this case I wrote a poem first. So I'm going to read a poem, and I'm going to tell why it happened. So the poem will explain, it was a romance, and afterwards, to cheer myself up, I wanted to make a happy thing, and the happy thing is this music that Bert Levine creates on my TV shows. So I made a date to record with Bert on last Sunday, and we would do an older song I did in 1987 called I Saved You to Save Me. Those were romantic days, the 80s. I had a great song about love. So we recorded it, and I went there Sunday to record. Bert has an incredible house in Silver Lake, and he's so kind, and his wife Michelle is my friend. And up the circular stairs, what do I see? The old Frisky Horses. So now we know what happened to the original Frisky Horses. Bert, he's a collector of my art originally. That's how we met. And so he has been trading artwork for the beautiful, beautiful music that he's made on all the parts of Fine Art for All that you see. On the intro, the outro, the little music in the background, and the new song that we recorded for tonight, as well as the previous Rocking Boat we did on earlier shows. So I'm going to read some poems, 2 of them, and they're called Nathaniel. 1. A little dip in purest joy, unheard of magic, sudden boy. Gift of sugar for a week, not a vision, just a peek. Just a little jump in bliss, back to earth to mourn and miss. Number 2. I lost number 2. Here it is. It's live television in the paper age. A reckless plunge in deepest hell, unheard of sudden closing bell, hail of horror day and night, no go slow, just sudden flight. Tons of pain, again my fate, another little schmuck to hate.